we're crushing the market with our social media experience. Like it's crazy to me, and we're not even good. So what are businesses missing? Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm awesome.
Good.
How are you, Mark?
Good. Hey, you're probably awesome all the time. Hey, your name, you have Berman Social Media, is that correct? But then
Berman Media Social.
Then your last name is
Mikel.
Mikel, Mikel. So Michelle, Mikel, but you have Berman Social Media, and over your right shoulder is Instagram Power Method. So we'll get into that. But so in preparing for today, you're always somebody that I know is way more prepared than me, right? So me being around you I already told you earlier, but happy International Women's Day.
Thank you so much.
I thought about it. I said, how did she select this day for me? Like, this should have been me selecting this day for you. But maybe there's something you're going to enlighten me with on.
I think the universe aligned on that one perfectly. It is, National or Women's History Month, all of that too. So I think it just kind of worked out perfectly.
Well, you're gracing us with your presence on this Women's Day.
Well,
hey, the two of the three like most important people in my life are women, my mom, and then my significant other, and then Saul does great things at the company. So I think you guys are starting to dominate. You might know it, but you really are.
Girls rule and boys drool.
Okay. You know what? We're going with that. I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna put that up in my new studio now. It's gonna go on my back wall. Really, my back wall is gonna say "Commit and don't quit." Like, that's my thing, and I'll ask you some questions about it. But so you're the owner of Berman Social Media, right?
Yeah, the name of my company is Berman Media PD.
Okay.
And Berman is my maiden name, so that's my unmarried name, or if you will. Mm-hmm. And I recently changed my name legally, so I am now officially Michelle Mikel. But we've decided to just leave it Berman Media and not go through the hoops, especially because everyone knows this as that too.
Maybe I'll ask some insight later on to advise new entrepreneurs starting businesses. Should they factor that in? If you're a woman, if you're somebody that's going to change your name, if you plan on getting married, is that something you should think about far in advance? So you have the Instagram Power Method. You created this Instagram Power Method. So that's a big significant part of what we're going to talk about today on helping entrepreneurs conquer Instagram. And then I think what I've seen on your LinkedIn is that you help people monetize Instagram, right?
Absolutely.
For their business. And then also I saw you're a member of the Junior League.
I am.
Right?
I was in California. I haven't been in Phoenix in the last 2 years, but I was when I first moved to Phoenix.
So that's women empowering women, correct?
100%. It's an incredible organization. If you guys have the time to do that, do it. Any ladies listening, not only is it a great way to meet other badass ladies, but it's also a really good way to give back to the female community.
Wonderful. Hey, so I think we have an hour and 15. I might want to take this 2 hours. But so thanks for joining us today. I think there's a ton that we're going to see in a couple weeks. You're coming to Cincinnati, and I'm just so excited that a big portion of the social media landscape that businesses need to be crushing every day, that we've connected with you and that you can help us crush and monetize and streamline everything Instagram. And so why Instagram? Why'd that become your specialty and your expertise?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome question. And it's a question I get all the time, right? People are like, there's all these social media platforms, TikTok and yada, yada, this and that, Snapchat. Why Instagram, Michelle? Why would you tell people to put their energy into Instagram? And my answer has always been the same. And I think it will remain the same long into the future. One, Instagram is not going anywhere, right? It's not a fad. It's not like this one, Snapchat thing where it went live on the stock market. I remember when that whole thing happened. And all these people in the social media industry space, everyone went and bought a bunch of stock. And within the first week, I think everyone had lost all their money and then some. So, Snapchat I think is great, but it's a fad. TikTok I think is great. I think there's people who have monetized it, but I think it's a fad. And ultimately Instagram is this one platform where any of these new things that come up, right? You got Clubhouse is this big new thing. Well, guess what? Instagram just came out with being able to do live audio and video in groups on Instagram, right? So you have all of these new things, but Instagram is so far ahead of the curve that Instagram is really all of those in one place. So instead of having to have 10 platforms or 10 apps saved on your phone so you can go into all of these different places, Instagram allows you to do all of it in one. And there's something really beautiful about that, right? When we're all trying to, one, get work done during the day, to be able to show up on all platforms every day, right? It's almost impossible, especially if you're busy, right? And I hate using busy as an excuse because I don't think it is one. But I definitely believe that there are ways to make your busyness involve social media. And I think Instagram gives us that opportunity because we can schedule, if you want to make a TikTok video, why? Make a reel. It's the same thing on Instagram, right? You want to do Snapchat, forget it. Do Instagram stories. It's the same thing. You want to do a YouTube video, forget that. Just do IGTV long form videos and then link it to the full video on YouTube. Anything you want to do on any of those other platforms, you can do all of it in one.
So are they important? That brings up a question, because everything that we hear, and we're starting to do a better job at my real estate company, across all social platforms. We really just started over the past 3 or 4 months to do it in the right way and to learn it better and to post daily content. Do you think we need to be focused on LinkedIn? Do we need to be focused on YouTube, on Facebook, and Instagram equally? I mean, Instagram's your passion. It's kind of your why to all social media. But do we still need to engage on all those other platforms?
So here's my take on that. Do I personally, as a business owner? No, I don't. I don't make time for the other platforms. But ultimately, I think part of the why behind that is I don't have the bandwidth, right? I have a team of girls that work for me, and we have a ton of business right now. We have so many new things coming in that for me to tax my girls with one more thing, I can't, right? Now, however, for you, as a great example, and a lot of bigger organizations, delegate, create an entire social media team and delegate, have somebody in charge of LinkedIn, somebody in charge of YouTube, and you create this, I'm legitimately the same mark on any platform you go on, right? And I think that's so imperative and very important to create brand consistency. Like if I go to your LinkedIn mark, I know I'm going to get the same mark that I'm going to get on Instagram. I'm going to get the same mark that I get on Facebook. And those things are important. So do I think that they're, a big part of your business? Do I think that they're part of growing and developing that presence that you're after? 100%.
But you kind of think Instagram is like the brain of all of them. I don't know how you would explain it.
I think it's the epicenter of all of that. If you're going to do one of them out of all of them, do Instagram. Why? Because it encompasses all of these other parts. If you have the bandwidth to do more, of course, or hire somebody to do it. But I think that especially for the younger entrepreneurs who are really trying to get off the ground and don't have a lot of capital, I think that's a good point to make too. When I started my business almost 7 years ago, I didn't have any money at all. I remember putting the $57 payment for like incorporating my company on my credit card and maxing out my credit card at the time, and that was 7 years ago. But you don't have a lot of capital, so it's hard when you're first beginning. And Instagram is one, completely free, and it's the fastest way to generate organic traffic. That is where everybody and all the eyeballs you want are hanging out anyway.
Do you see, Facebook bought Instagram years ago?
Forever ago, yeah.
Right. So is there much crossover? Is there much synchronization, or do they operate them separately? Do you recommend you having a total separate Facebook approach, or should they be connected? Has Facebook designed it so that they support each other? You're the expert of this. We're just learning.
They stand alone if you want them to. They also talk to each other if you want them to. So it's up to you. I think that as far as cross posting, I think that anything you post on Instagram, if you want it to go to your business Facebook, then do it. Business Instagram to business Facebook. That's how it works. You can't do a personal Instagram and push it to a business or business Facebook. It's either business to business or personal to personal. And when we coach people through this, we say, whatever's on your Instagram, especially now that you're working with us, we're going to elevate every piece of content you put out moving forward anyway. Meaning if you auto post it to both Instagram and Facebook, it's going to elevate your presence on Facebook dramatically, just as much as it would on Instagram. The difference being that Facebook's reach is significantly lower than on Instagram without paying for the foot traffic to your page, or the eyeball traffic, if you will. Now, when you get to this place where, okay, I have this strategy dialed in, I now have the bandwidth to be able to recreate or repurpose content that goes on Facebook, that's separate than the same look from Instagram, then yeah, of course, that's always going to be better. But the second thing I want to say about that, or second of three, so there's two more parts. One, on Facebook specifically, you can repurpose content to your personal page, right? And the ultimate thing is that your audience on Facebook is not the same as Instagram. Yes, you may have some that cross over naturally, right? People find you on social media, they want to add you as a friend on Facebook, and you're following them on Instagram, but nobody is going to be pissed off by seeing the same content on Instagram as they do on Facebook.
Explain that to us real quick. I hate to interrupt, but I have to here. When you say that your audience is different on Facebook and Instagram, everybody hears that.
Yeah.
Why is it, and how would you explain the differentiation of the audience?
So Facebook is definitely a little bit more of an older audience. Typically, it's your grandma, grandpa, that older generation of people who haven't tapped into the easier platforms, if that makes sense. To them, right? To me and you, Instagram is really easy. To them, Instagram's not easy because it's this thing they haven't tried yet.
You're actually putting words in my brain. I don't think Instagram's easy. You know why?
Well,
because we hadn't done it.
Yeah.
That's your point. You have to get started. And so I get
exactly.
it.
Yeah. And Facebook is your older adapter, right? So it's the person who finally ripped the Band-Aid off and got social media. My mom and dad finally got Facebook, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And they've connected with all their friends from high school or all their business friends and colleagues from across the country. And now they get to follow along with my sister and I, and I'm about to have my first baby, but my sister's got 2. So I get to see pictures of the grandbabies, like that type of stuff, right? They adapt to that. My mom and dad have no desire to be on Instagram because they're like, oh, it's just one more thing, right? But on Instagram, it's all of our generation of people. And I will tell you that the older generation is definitely starting to tap into Instagram significantly more. And I deal obviously with the real estate and the loan officer space every single day. And I will tell you that the percentage of individuals who are starting to use Instagram that are in the 55 and older category is dramatically growing.
Does there need to be in this Instagram thing, what I'm hearing is, does there need to be intent, even though people use it personally, and I pull up Instagram and I see all these videos, does there have to almost, from a business perspective, that's what we're talking about, you help real estate agents and loan officers for the most part, but everything you teach would probably cross over to a lot of, right? So, but does there have to be more of intent and more of a plan behind an Instagram model than Facebook?
I think if you're trying to do something to generate business, you have to have a business plan and a strategy. You can't just throw something at it and hope it's going to stick and connect to somebody. You may get lucky and you may get a handful of people that do. But if you really want to take it to the next level where this is a genuine lead source for your business, you have to have a strategy and you have to have a plan. Okay, why am I producing this content? Okay, well, I got a ton of saves on this content. How do I reproduce more of that so that more people keep coming? All of those points. How do I then incorporate Instagram into my email signature when I send emails to somebody every single day? How do I make sure I send an email out once a month to my email list saying, hey, don't forget to follow me on Instagram? Once you have that, it's not something you can just willy-nilly do and expect to get the level of results that I have on this platform. It's not going to happen.
So the results you have, so this Instagram power method, you're a brilliant marketer because it sits over your shoulder the whole time. Right? It just does. One of these days I'll have some huge pivot logo behind me or necessary entrepreneur. But so what is, without you taking hours, this class, this Instagram power method, this strategy you have, it's hours long when people pay for you to come do this and you put it on. Yep. So break this thing down to us in a podcast format where we have a limited amount of time.
Yeah. So the Instagram Power Method program is an online course meant to empower realtors and loan officers to walk through the process of how I've built my 7-figure company. Through Instagram. And 7 figures is, something I can't believe I'm saying out loud, but that's our goal for 2021. We more than doubled 2019 and 2020. So the whole COVID thing, my business slowed down, excuse my French, but bullshit, right? Crop that out if you have to.
No way, man. Me, I have to control myself so they don't fly like crazy.
Yeah. It's I call bullshit. I mean, I know so many realtors who have had like mega years in 2020 because they didn't let that excuse be the reason why they slowed down. They pivoted and they made it happen. So the Instagram Power Method program is an online course that can walk them through how to do that. So it's a total of 10 modules. There's 3 bonus modules, 79 videos in there currently. Those videos are anywhere from 10 minutes to 14, 15. Some of them are 5 minutes. It just depends on what I'm covering. There's a total of 19 handouts in the program. They're all homework assignments meant to be printed out and walked through. And it was built out of me reverse engineering what I was doing for everyone else. And instead of taking on independent clients constantly when I was only one person at the time, I said, I'm not going to do that. I can scale my business by showing somebody how to do it instead of doing it for them. And that's how the course was ultimately born.
So how long did it take you to design this?
Oh gosh.
I mean, and also I bet speak to how many resets of the Power Method have there been?
We've edited and added to our course over the years. So the course went live in July of 2019. I've been in business since November of 2014. So almost going on 7 years, about 6.5. And in November of 2014, I started in the industry, in the Instagram space as an influencer. So I was buying and selling Instagram accounts and flipping them like you'd flip real estate. But in the process, I was working with big brands and helping them make profit off of, hey, Michelle, here's my $2,000, turn that $2,000 into $5. Here's the product I'm trying to sell. Pay yourself out of that money, but also create ads and then pay other Instagram accounts to promote our product. So in the process, I got really good at, okay, these kinds of eyeballs resonate with this kind of product. This kind of audience is going to like that type of content. Okay, well, this is the perfect audience, but that content didn't make sense. So how do I edit the content to make it work for that demographic that I'm trying to put it in front of? So all of that, years and years of doing that, turned into the Instagram Power Method course, right? Instead of me doing it for all of these big brands, I'm like, no, I'm going to teach other people how to do it for themselves. So the course itself, conceptually, right, if you think from November of 2014 when I started to July of 2019, it took me, how many years is that? 5, we'll call it, to one, believe in myself enough to say, I've created results, I've duplicated it so many times that I now know it works. And once I had that idea in my head, this is a story for a different part of this conversation, I'm sure, but I hired a business coach and I ended up committing to flying and spending a week with him, learning exactly what he wanted me to do to turn my business into what it is now. And when I got home from the UK from that trip, I fired every client I had that was not in the real estate or loan space, which at the time I had 13 clients and I had to fire 8 of them. So I more than cut my business in half, by more than that, closer to 3/4. And then took those clients as the ones who I was going to interview. So I have a pain point interview that's in my course that I actually reinvented for out of what I had done myself. So I use those interviews with those realtors that I was working with as an opportunity for myself to do the market research I needed to figure out exactly what do they need in order to want to buy a program like this. And what other programs are on the market that they have seen that they didn't like, or why didn't they like them, and all those questions, right? So once I did that, that was in January. The course was born in July.
So this business coach, you hear it so often. Should people get a business coach? What made you do that?
This is a fun story. I'm glad we have enough time because it changed my life, hands down. But I had been in a long-term relationship and had called off my first wedding about 80 days before the wedding. And I had never been out of the country. I, had always been a homebody for the most part. And I finally said, you know what? Everyone talks about going overseas and like spending time and doing stuff on their own and like self-care and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in a way that also helps me make money, right? Because at the time I was not broke by any means, but I was definitely struggling to get to that next level. And so I said, okay, my business coach is in the UK. I've never been out of the country. I just got out of this terrible relationship. I'm going to combine the two and turn it into my trip. And I'd already been working with the business coach for a while, about 6 months. And he was referred to me actually from a realtor that I had known. but he was not a business coach for real estate specifically. He was more of a general business coach, really. But anyways, I ended up flying to the UK, spending 7 days with him, conceptualizing my ultimate big picture goal and then reverse engineering it with him in a coffee shop. So we went 7 days straight in coffee shops with those easel board, like whiteboard marker papers.
That's intense. That's intense. I guarantee that was intense.
Yeah. I still have the picture. Like I have the picture and everyone tells me I should get it framed and like put it on my wall, but I totally should. I still could. But that moment was when I said to myself, this I probably could have figured out, right? I probably could have figured this out on my own later on. But the fact that I committed to, I'm going to spend more money than I have right now, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do this because I know it's going to take me from where I want to be, right, or where I am right now, to really where I want to be. I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. I think it was the decision was, I know I can do this. I just need someone to tell me what I think I already know, so that I actually do it.
So what really helped you those 7 days? What was your big takeaway? I hear this thing that you have this mindset of a reverse engineering mindset. Like I hear this consistently in you. So I don't know what came out of that coaching, but what's the best thing that you think you took away that if other people find their right coach that they could as well? Like what was it? If you already knew and need to be reinforced, what was the takeaway?
Two things. One, find somebody that you listen to on the phone when you talk to and they light your passion on fire, right? Like I'm a very passionate person and everyone that I ever talk to is always, Michelle, that's why we want to hire you. Like, because this is what you do. Like you love what you're doing. You can totally tell that. Like someone calls me and is like, I'm too busy for Instagram. I'm like, bullshit. You're not too busy for Instagram. You've made a decision to say to yourself that you're too busy for Instagram or that you're too busy to grow your business. Right. So I'm also not going to, sugarcoat it for you. I'm going to be very straightforward and honest because that's what he was to me. So when I called him and I said, or he asked me those, the questions when I was interviewing him, like, am I going to pay this guy to help me? One of the questions he asked me is, what's your first 2 excuses that you could make up in your mind as to why you haven't done this? And obviously I gave him them at the time and he goes, okay, both of those within 7 days, we're going to smash them. We're going to get rid of them so that they are so far out of your mind. You're never going to say those 2 phrases ever again. And I was just like, oh shit. Okay. So that was one big thing. Find somebody that lights you on fire and makes you feel empowered, makes you feel in your mind, okay, I can do that. Like he just said, he made it sound so simple. I can do that.
So it makes you feel empowered. So what empowers you?
Me?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
2 big things. So one big thing for me as a company, as a why for why I built Verma Media way back in the day in the first place is I've always wanted to be a mom and I've always wanted to be a mom that raised my own kids. So
you're on that path.
Yeah, so exactly. So I wanted to be the mom that was very, very involved in my kid's life. I don't love the idea of daycare. I get the purpose. I'm not saying if you put your kid in daycare, you're a bad mom. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying for me, that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. I'd seen my sister grow up or have her kids grow up over the last 7 years where she only saw them for breakfast and only saw them at dinner and had somebody else taking care of them during the day. And it didn't sit well with me. I just didn't enjoy watching that. It's almost like this kid has multiple parents and it just didn't feel good. So that's the first why for me, or first empowering thing that I knew I wanted to do. The second thing is I know what this has done for me and what it's changed in my life, from digging my heels in and committing to figuring it out. So every day I wake up and I say to myself, all I want to do is change one person's life today, one person. So if I can wake up today and look at my to-do list and say, who needs me the most today? And I can give that person everything they need to move their needle. I know that I'm paying what was given to me forward to somebody else, because the feeling I have every day waking up and knowing I have 2 girls that I get to support now. I have a husband who is so supportive of me and what we do. And I get testimonials and emails from clients every single day. It makes those shitty days where you get an email from somebody that's pissed off. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, right? Because you've helped so many people in so many positive ways. And I want people to walk away from working with me or hearing me speak, or even just listening to me on a podcast, like audio. And I want them to be like, I don't know what she's selling, but I want to buy it because she's just passionate about what she's doing.
Yeah. So this principled person that you are, because you are, I can tell you are. It's not always easy, huh?
No. There are probably more days that I've cried and left frustrated than not, in the last, 2 years from building this course. But the days, like last week, I had a huge event on Thursday, and it was the very first one I had ever done. And I walked away from that event and I was like, all of that, every single ounce of tears that I shed for just even for that day, even planning that with my girls and getting ready for that day, there was literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into that day. But you walked away from, or my team and I walked away from it, and we were all texting each other and we're just like, holy shit, I am so excited about what just happened. It makes it all worth it. And I think one of the things I've done more recently is I've like saved in my emails all like star testimonial emails that I get, or star like the videos that I get from some of the people who do record ones for us. And I'm having a bad day and I'll just pull it up and read them, because it's like, okay, this one person who is really not that important in my overall scheme of my entire business and career is pissed off today, but look at all of these other people who love you and are excited for work, about their work with you.
How important is the piece, you spoke to, the support that your husband had a few minutes ago that he has for this thing you're doing together. How important is it for an entrepreneur and to have that emotional support from someone?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a spouse. It could be your parents. It could be a girlfriend. It could be anything. It is single-handedly the most valuable thing, because you will fail without it. And that's being very direct. But my first relationship that I was talking about a little bit earlier, we had been together for almost 4 years. We were planning on getting married, and we went through this whole process, and he was with me when I started our company, or my company. And I will never forget some of the things that he would say to me, and he would always make me update my resume like every 3 to 6 months, and leave it on my desktop. So I always had a little, current resume at the top of my dashboard on my computer every time I opened it. And I never figured out why something as simple as that was holding me back.
Is that because he was like, you're going to fail, so you all need to be prepared to take another job? Is that
exactly
really?
That's exactly what it was. He wanted me to always have a backup plan and always have a plan B, because he would say things like, Instagram is going to go away, or Instagram's going to fizzle out, or sooner or later you're going to have to get a real job because people are going to figure out that Instagram's not that important.
Yeah. You can't have the 2 or 3 people in your inner circle that affect your mental state, that affect your emotional ties outside of the career and job. You can't have them pull you down for 1 second.
You want to be an entrepreneur and you want to make it. Everybody will tell you this. No entrepreneur will ever sugarcoat it if they're a good one. It is a dog-eat-dog world. And in our world, like, what we do is hard. And there's no cheat sheet. There's no book that you can read that just perfectly says, do this, do that, do this, and then you're successful.
It took you 5 years from the time you started your company until you came up with the Instagram Power Method. That's 5 years of constant, aggressive, committed work.
100%. And I think the takeaway I can tell anybody who's listening who, I'm an entrepreneur and my spouse isn't that supportive, or I don't have that support system. What I can tell you is, if you don't, find it. Go find a support group. Go find a female group like Junior League, right? That's a fantastic organization for females to go get encouraged by other women who are doing great things. But my ultimate point for anyone listening is, you cannot have a back door in entrepreneurship. You cannot at all. You will fail.
Your back door is you can't have a backup plan, right?
Yeah, you cannot have a back door. I'm going to put my toe into this, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I have this other thing
why can't you? I understand it, but I'm not. We're talking about you and your perspective. So why? Yeah. Why can't you have that?
Because you will never 100% commit to growth and commit to the things that you have to do in order to make it, if you know that it's okay if you don't.
And when it gets really tough, you might take the back door.
You can't have like think of like a pool, right? You can't know that you're jumping into the deep end and you could easily just swim across the pool to the shallow end and get up, right? You have to jump into a pool that's 20 feet deep, knowing that you either sink or you swim. That's it.
What if there's sharks in there, Michelle?
Yeah. What if there's crocodiles? You got to be able to swim faster than a crocodile. But my point is you have to jump in with both feet, and there cannot be any other option, because if there is another option, you will always in the back of your mind say, it's okay if I fail. And for me, I think one of the things too was by having a back door, I was never 100% confident in I can do this, right? You have to go into a situation as an entrepreneur and say, I have no backup plan. I have no alternative option if something goes wrong, which means I have to have reckless resolve for finding the solution. Whatever that solution is, I have to eat, sleep, drink, finding that solution, because guess what? I can't go get a 9-to-5 job.
So, so you said your 7-figure job. I have no doubt it's going to be that. You're probably right on the precipice of it. But so why so often this entrepreneur thing? When I was growing up, like we all wanted to be, I don't know, so let me speak from a little boy's perspective. Growing up in the Midwest, we always played sports all day long. And I didn't think I was going to be some successful athlete, but that was kind of probably your dream. It was never, let me go start a business and be an entrepreneur. That seems like that's this latest generation's thing. And I'm all for it. Go out and conquer the world, all right? Create financial independence. Call your own shots. Don't let anybody dictate and tell you what to do. However, there has to be this piece that comes with it. You know, my slogan more all the time is commit and don't quit.
Yep.
But here's my question. When should you quit?
I think, I don't even know how to spell quit anymore at this point in my career, and I am proud of that. But I will tell you, for anyone who follows big entrepreneurs or people like Gary Vee who talk heavily on this concept, right? What I would tell people is it's okay if you want to be a follower instead of a leader, because the world needs followers too, just as much as we need leaders. And I think one of the things, my assistant, Sarah, who Mark, you met a little earlier, but she is literally my right hand. I do not exist without Sarah. She has grown so much with me over the last year and has grown into a very, very major role in what we do. Everyone who works with us gets to talk to Sarah at least once or twice a week. Most of the time I don't even talk to new onboarding clients because they go straight through her. But what I can tell you about Sarah is she doesn't want to be on podcasts, right? She doesn't want to be on stage speaking in front of big rooms and doing that. She wants to be the one that holds everything together here.
I have a couple of those people here in my company, just for me personally. Mike's one of them. Saul's one of them. There's other extremely essential people in our company that none of us could have these real estate careers without them. But specifically to go to this point about someone who does dip their toe in or jump into the deep end when it's really cold. Like this idea that they have to commit and not quit. The entrepreneur, the person, she doesn't want to. So the good thing for her is she gets to sit beside you and let you be like badass of everything, Michelle, and going and building the business, and she gets to execute. But these people that say, no, I'm going to go start a business. I'm going to go create something. Like this idea of this committing and don't quit, like I don't think they should even start if they're going to quit.
No. If you have any intention of having, I'll use the backdoor analogy because I say it a lot. If you have any intention of starting something and in your mind, your mindset says, or you have self-doubt phrasing where you say, it's okay if this doesn't work out, but at least I tried. No.
Yep.
Get a therapist, get a business coach. I mean, I still have it. I'm 30, almost 31 years old, and I've been in therapy for 8 years, and I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
Because I have somebody who helps me every single week deal with my own insecurity, where I'm a female, right? I'm a pregnant female now who's a business owner, who's in charge of a lot of other people, who has bad days. And we need somebody like that to be able to get our mind in a place that can help us conquer that. To
get to the point where you don't need it as much. It's not to say you don't need it, right? But if you can wake up and not care about what the world thinks about you, and you go all in and just focus on the the functions and execution every day, that's conquering, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing people are really afraid of, and I'm guilty of this several years ago when I started, but I reached out to a business coach for the first time and I got an email back saying your first month invoice is $3,000. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. I don't have that kind of money at the time. If somebody told me it was $3,000 a month now, I'd be like, that's cheap. What happened? But at the time that was so scary.
So you paid that. That's what you paid?
That's what I paid in 2000. What year was that? 18. I paid $3,000 for my monthly coaching with the gentleman that I ended up going and visiting in the UK.
How much did you end up spending, and do you still?
I don't anymore. I don't have him as a business coach anymore. We were together for about a year. I have a business coach now who's shifted gears for me. That's in a totally different category or lane. Partly because I leveled up in my own business and I'm now working on hitting that 7-figure mark versus, okay, I just got to make $50,000 myself this year, So that was part of it, but I ended up in total, we were together for about a year. So that's going on, I'll call it $40,000 if you include the UK trip.
Yeah.
So
when you were making, just tell me how much that year from a gross perspective you grossed.
Yeah. That year we grossed 88 as a company and it was just me.
And you spent 40 on the coach.
I paid 40 of it to a coach. So in my bank account, minus taxes that I had to pay that year, I maybe made $30,000.
It's what you call long-term goals, commitment, and execution. I mean, that's just, you were
100%.
Focused on the long-term, focused on the outcome. You weren't going anywhere.
No, and I think that fast forwards to when my husband and I met. My story of how I met my husband is, I literally makes me smile every time because it's so amazing. But when Dave and I first got married, it was right after I'd gotten home from the UK and I had fired all my clients. So I went from, making $15,000, $16,000 a month every month without even thinking to 3, 4, maybe. I had months where, clients would come and go, some would fall off and some would come on. And there were months where I made barely anything and he was making more than me from the military, from his medical retirement. And so there were plenty of months where Dave and I had to scratch together the 2 pennies to go spend $300 at Costco to put food in our fridge, Hey,
are you going to tell us, since you brought it up, I wouldn't have gone there. Are you going to tell us how quick it went from meeting Dave at the gym to marriage?
Yeah. So we met in December, didn't talk really at all. We had both separated, or not separated, but we had both gone home for Christmas to our respective families. Ironically, we're both from California and we didn't know that at the time. But we both went home to our families, came home. The first day the gym was open was January 6th. We started talking on January 7th, went on our first date January 10th that weekend, and we got married March 7th. And we just celebrated 2 years yesterday.
Congrats. All right, so January 7th to March 7th. January 7th, started talking from the gym, married March 7th of 2018.
Yep, 19.
19? Wow, 2 years. Okay, and then baby's on the way. Baby number 1 is on the way.
Correct. Due in August.
All right, so sorry to transition back to the business. So when it comes to Instagram, in your world that you're just crushing, what are businesses missing? Like, you were making fun of me the other day. We've recently met and connected, and we're going to see at an event that's happening here. But you were crushing us, and I was just like, hey, look at it. We don't do it well. We're starting to, but we don't. But the average, and we're a company that sold 1,000 units. We're a real estate company, 100-plus agents. We're growing like crazy, and we're crushing the market with our social media experience. Like, it's crazy to me, and we're not even good. So what are businesses missing? Like, what is the missing piece here?
The number one thing is they have no specific message to any one person. They think that they can talk to everyone and assume that somebody will listen. And one of the things that I'm sure we'll probably talk at your event about this, and I may even talk about it on stage, but if you do not believe in your business enough to niche down, you're not a good business owner, in my opinion. When I niched down to solely working with realtors and loan officers, I by no means deterred other people in other industries, right? I still had people in all kinds of industries that had nothing to do with those reaching out. I had my event on Thursday last week, and 2 of the people in the room had nothing to do with real estate, but they still paid to show up because they knew that, as you said earlier, this is going to translate. I just have to know how to pick it out of it. But that's the big thing, right? Is they're just producing content to produce content without knowing, here is my person. This is the person I really want to attract. And this is my ideal client's avatar. I am going to create content day in and day out, and I'm going to fish that person out. And once you make that commitment to, I'm good enough at what I do to put this out into the world, your business will explode.
Is it because you're focusing? No, it's a concentrated focus on a message, but is it because you're then focusing really, really tight now on who you're going after?
Yeah, because your content speaks more directly to them. You're able to produce content based off specific pain points that those people are looking for. You can, meaning like those are, when you have clients, right? Mark, you know this, when you work with people, they come to you with baggage, right? They come to you with questions, and these common things start to happen all the time in every transaction or every deal. You start hearing the same stuff. Now, if you can start producing content to solve those problems for someone who maybe didn't even know they had that problem in the first place, like consciously, subconsciously, they knew they did, but they didn't have any messaging that says, hey, if this is you, this is the person you should be hiring, right? Like, go ahead.
Are you speaking to their needs, their problems that you're solving? Because I'm thinking of it as, we're running this company that's going to be 200, 225 agents by the end of the year, running at 200 transactions a month. Those agents have different clients.
Yep.
So as a company, right, it'll be interesting when you come here to hear that, like, hey, that's going to be tough for me, at least from my perspective, sitting here now, listen, to drill down, to focus on.
But it's not, because when you're recruiting agents to come join Pivot, yep, right? And I know you don't really recruit, a lot of time they come to you, but
we don't recruit anybody who's currently licensed. Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. Right. So you already know who your niche is with what you just said. My niche is agents who are not hanging their license anywhere or are not currently licensed.
Yep. And I have a little bit more that I'll define when you get here. Like,
exactly.
Yep. Exactly. I know who we're going after, who we're trying to help change your life.
Now that you can say that and you can verbalize that to me, your conversation, if I always use this example, right? If I were to go to a realtor networking party, which we used to go to all the time, thank you, COVID, for ruining that one, right? But we used to go to those all the time, and I would meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of realtors, and I would be like, hey, what kind of realtor are you? What kind of real estate do you do? Oh, I work with first-time home buyers who want to buy a single family home. Okay, I know 5,000 of you. Like, what about you? And then I will never forget this gentleman I met, incredible agent, first of all, but when I asked him that question, he goes, Michelle, I know I specifically work with veterans who are not currently in the military, but want to learn how to use their VA benefits to buy a house with zero out of their pocket.
Tremendous
that was his sentence to me.
Yep.
And my eyeballs perked up. Like, I felt like all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I want to sit here and have a drink with this guy and talk to him about his business. Because one, I'm obviously married to a guy that was formerly in the military. But two, that guy knew exactly who his audience was, and he knew exactly what his goal was. So for you, Mark, right, you know what your goal is. You know who your person is. You just now have to start producing content to say, hey, new agent, this is why Pivot is right for you. Talk about pain points, talk about leads, like how expensive leads can be, right? Having to buy leads sucks, right? Having to split share really high percentages suck. Having caps that are astronomical sucks. Walking into a new brokerage that has no training built into it whatsoever. So you have to go and work with other experienced agents just to even scratch out your first deal.
Yep.
Right? Sucks. Okay, but why would I come work for Pivot? Oh, well, we have this entire team. We have a YouTube specialist. We have a LinkedIn specialist. We have an Instagram girl. We have all of these things. Oh, and not to mention your first 6 weeks are solely real estate coaching exclusively before you're even allowed to learn about social media.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If I hear that as a new agent, all of a sudden I'm just like, holy shit, not only are my splits great, but I have every coaching platform known to man handed to me. On top of it, the environment is awesome.
Yep.
But how is somebody going to know that? Somebody's going to have to consume that on social media or in your marketing or through whatever, excuse me, before they can get to that. But if you don't want to do the grassroots side of it, of pounding pavement and doing all of these crazy things to go get all of these agents that we can't really do anymore anyway right now.
Oh, we
how
will again. Oh, we will.
I know you will, but I'm just saying in general,
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
The real estate market as a whole, door knocking doesn't really work anymore, right? It served its purpose.
Don't make me smile.
It served its purpose at the time, and it was a huge fundamental part of learning how to be a real estate agent, right? But if you move into 2021, how many people are still door knocking?
There'll be like one of us when it's back, even though I'm a broker. There'll be one, just because I have to like get back to this feeling of everything that created me. But
yeah, which is great. But
yeah,
my
I mean,
point is,
we saw it coming. You know, we as a company, we were ahead of the game before COVID. I think too many companies tried to react once COVID happened. That's one of the
100%.
reasons why we've been so successful, because we realized, and I've said it on so many sales meetings, I have never seen an opportunity of a venue, of there be a resource to replace the traditional prospecting that we always taught, until social media showed up at our door, and we just go where people are now. That's where they are.
Meet them where they're at.
Yeah, I've never seen, and so I went from telling everybody they had to knock on doors, they had to do open houses, to saying, hey guys, this new avenue that we have here, it's probably even better.
But don't just do it to do it. That's my problem, right?
Yeah.
Where you just opened the door and said, okay, these grassroots things aren't the way of the world anymore. Mm-hmm. They still work. Of course they still work, right? Or else real estate wouldn't have been founded on those principles. But if you look at the way of the world today, right, you need social media. But if you're going to do social media and expect it to work for you, you have to have a very, very strategic approach to it. Think about how much, I know you have Mike hanging out in the background, right, with you, and all of your other people that are part of what your organization does. They would probably agree that you know who your ideal client is. You know what their pain points are. You know what their struggles are when a new agent walks through the door. And I just listed off a whole bunch that I would have as a new agent if I were one. Now creating marketing to put it out there and say, hey person, if this is something you're subliminally thinking but been afraid to even say out loud, well, guess what? This is the right place for you, and here's why, right? Environment, all these other things.
So do you help, let's say companies are out here executing on their fundamentals, right? Their business plan, their financials, they have their customers, whether they're business to business, whether they're consumer to business, but do you help them through this Instagram power method? You're going to have an awakening inside of a lot of people. And do you help them figure out what that is, or do they need to find that out?
No, that's the difference between me and most of the programs on the market. I would say all of the programs on the market. Before you ever post on Instagram or social media in general, in my program, you have 4 modules to get through before you ever post a piece of content. Because I can tell you right now that I have had so many conversations with very experienced agents who've been in the industry for a very long time. We had an agent on Thursday that came last week to our event, been a realtor for 37 years and did not have an I help statement, did not have a who do you help, how do you help them, and what's the exact outcome or result that you're promising somebody.
Most agents, right, they just don't have it.
They add to the white noise, right? They want to get content out because they want to catch up with the environment around them. But in doing so without the intention behind it, you're just adding to that. Everybody calls it white noise, but that's what it is. You're just adding to everything that's already on this platform that we're sick of seeing. So I think for me, one of the things that people have said about me a lot, and maybe someday I will do this, who knows, definitely writing a book eventually. But people have said you're more of a business coach than you are an Instagram coach. Instagram ends up being the medium or the platform, but the business side of it is what really people want.
It's essential. I mean, for you to be able to execute what I'm hearing here, for you to be able to execute on Instagram and social media in general, you have to have a defined plan. You have to. If not, I don't know if you can even track the results, and are you monetizing it properly? And it'll be exciting to see these modules. You know, I just know you're on fire for the stuff you're doing. So it's going to be exciting for us to go through this, even if it's in a micro piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I have big plans, right? I would love to hold hands with every realtor that walks through your office and make sure that this is part of what they do. And I think whether it's, myself or other people, and we're a big team of social media experts that work with your agents. I think that's what has to happen for every brokerage, for every organization that's on the market or out in the market trying to generate new business, because that's what your agents are looking for. That's what they need. But I can also tell you that I am sick of the excuses.
Yep. So are they willing to? That's what I was going to ask. So are they willing to do this?
Yeah. I mean, when I first started, and I know we're talking entrepreneur, and I think this is such an incredible conversation, first of all, but second of all, I don't want to sugarcoat it, right? When I first started as an entrepreneur, I took any business that walked through the door. You have to.
You do.
Right?
I do. We tell you, but you even tell them to now, right? You wouldn't tell me anything different.
No, absolutely not. Take any business that walks through the door. And especially if you're a brand new agent, do not expect to go out and start selling $1 million homes tomorrow. It's not real life.
Nope.
Unless you live in Beverly Hills. And honestly, even if you live in Beverly Hills, your first transaction is probably going to be a shack on the side of the road.
That somebody's going to tear down, maybe. Yeah.
Some investor is going to come by, throw or demolish the entire thing and start over. But when you first start, right, you have to take whatever business comes at your way. You got to pay your bills and you got to put food on your table. But as you get to a place, right, as a company, we raised our prices. When Sarah first joined my team, we raised our course price. About 6 months later, we raised the price again. And come September, we're raising the price again. Now, why am I doing that, right? And the VIP service that my team and I offer, we've raised that price 4 times since hiring Sarah. Why am I doing that? Couple things. One, I'm leveling out of the excuse game, right? I'm trying to move away from the newer people or the people who have a bazillion excuses in their own minds that I can't change. No matter how good I am at what I do, I cannot change somebody's terrible mindset if they want to sit there and believe that they are always going to be too old to learn how to use Instagram.
Then guess what? Then they are.
You're not my person. Go hire somebody else who is willing to put up with that crap. Because at some point I was, at some point I did.
Yep.
And
so you think by raising your price, you're going to price those people out of the market?
100%. Those people that hear what, we charge $2,500 a month to be a VIP client with us. Somebody listens to that and immediately the way the conversation goes, we either know if that person's on board or not. Right. And I remember you and I even talking about it, Mark, sorry, not Mike. I'm thinking of Mike right now. But Mark, when you and I first talked about that, you were like, I have $2,500 sitting in my side table right here in cash, right? That's our person. Because they're already bought in. They already know and understand the power of it.
Yep.
They just don't understand they're not on the train. They don't get where the train's supposed to go, right? They need the guidance to keep the train going in the direction it needs to. But the person who I get on a phone call with and they're like $2,500 a month, I was paying a VA $500 a month to post for me. And I pull up their Instagram on my phone and I'm like, yeah, you can tell you're only paying $500 a month. Right? Like I'm at a point in my career, I do not have time for that crap. Yeah. I do not. If you genuinely believe that you can pay someone else and not have any involvement in what your content is.
Oh, you mean passive real estate isn't a thing? You mean passive marketing isn't a thing? Jesus, if I hear somebody say passive income one more time about any part of real estate, I'm not a violent person, but I may slap them.
We hear that all the time. We hear people say, oh, well, I just want to pay someone to do everything for me because I don't have time.
Give me some passive leads. It's like, yeah, that's really going to work well. Yeah.
No, and I'll talk to them about it and I'll talk them through it and say, this is why you can't have a assistant that works for you in the Philippines posting content for you if you're never, ever on the phone with them. Like if that person doesn't know your business, that person doesn't know the things you say, the words you use, the way you describe things, if that person doesn't know the story of that buyer or seller, then how can you expect them to produce content that anyone's going to give a crap about?
Here's the reason, because what we're talking about is not easy. It's not.
No,
it's simple what has to happen, but it's not easy because the time and the energy that has to be taken to execute is tremendous. And we know it's worth it. Me and you know, because you've been on this path since 2014. I started this company 13 years ago, and for the first 10 years, I was grinding. 100%. And we're still grinding, but now we're going to double every year in size. And so It's just so difficult that to get through this fixed mindset. And you're right. That's when we go out and we hire agents, we talk about this fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And on International Women's Day, I think it was actually a woman who, I don't know her name, but I think she came up with that idea about a growth mindset. And I just, I'm tired of the excuses. And I'm positive in that sense, seems like, but I'm tired of them because I don't have time, to your point, like you don't, I don't have time to initially deal with the mindset, to change that mindset, to then educate you and teach you what I know that will help change your life.
And I think as entrepreneurs, right, we get to a place where we learn how to say no because we know that person's not going to serve our purpose anymore.
100%.
But again, you even made the comment, the first 5 to 10 years you're grinding. And are you still grinding? Absolutely. Am I still grinding every single day? Am I still working to even get into connection to you? Right. I had to ask for that.
Yeah.
I had to ask Kyle, hey, who's this Mark guy? You were just on his podcast a little while ago. Like, do you think he'd be down to talk to me? 7 years in, even with the reputation that we've started building, I still have to do that.
Yep.
But the difference is we get to a place where we're okay with hearing no because we're ready to go work towards getting the yes.
And you're so much better. You're so much more skilled at getting the yes, right? You've built this person, this skill. You've educated your mind. You know who your client is. All these things come together that we failed and we've learned on, and now you're ready to go crush it. And you just don't hear as many no's anymore. You just don't.
And I also know what to fight for.
Yeah.
Right. I also know what type of relationship to fight for, and what relationship is not worth the hassle.
Is that the important part, to find out who your customer is?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can tell you, like, if I have to follow up with somebody 15 times to get them to say yes to me, I could spend the same amount of energy on someone else and follow up 2 or 3 times. Like for you, right? I had to follow up again to get the calendar link from Mike.
Yep.
Right. But I knew it was worth it because I knew you were a lead for me.
Yep.
That was worth my time. And I use most of you guys who are listening to this, you may have heard of a gentleman named Phil Treadwell, who's based out of Dallas. He's a large mogul, if you will, in the mortgage space, runs a podcast called Mortgage Marketing Expert. But back in July of 2019, when I first launched the Instagram Power Method, I reached out to Phil probably 6 or 7 times before the guy finally even gave me the time of day. It was the very first podcast I was ever on. Phil and I still laugh about this to this day, and he makes fun of me on Clubhouse chats or like when we're in on like Facebook group calls or whatever. And we're doing a virtual conference together in June. And when we're introducing this other panel, he still made fun of me for it. To this day, I'm sure he will forever. But he was like, my wife had to finally yell at me for like ignoring you so many times so that I would finally just shut up and listen to you. And he was my very first podcast episode, but I had to invest a ton of energy into following up with him. But why, right? Why did I do that? Because that was a door that I knew I needed to open in order to get to where we are right now, right? To date, I've probably been on 30 podcasts at least. And I still have the email saved from Phil, who told me, get on as many podcasts as you can and do it for free, Michelle, and do it over and over and over again until enough people have heard your name that you don't have to ask anymore.
Are you selective on the podcast you go after? So there are people, because I'm busy like you. I just don't even know how Mike and I accomplish these things. You just get up every day and you have 40 things and you check off as many as you can. You get back up the next day and do it. But there's a ton of people reaching out for podcasts for this thing compounds, for me to be on them. And what's your take on that? Do you accept them all?
No, I don't. And what's funny is just the other day, we had reached out to one because it was a women in real estate podcast. I'm not going to name names by any means, but it was a particular podcast that specialized in women and moms in real estate. We had reached out to them, name dropping some of the other podcasts we had been on, especially in the real estate world, which are huge. I've been on Lab Coat Agents. I mean, it's the #1 real estate podcast in the country. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to pay to be on their show. And I said, can you send me a spec sheet to show me what your audience size is and blah, blah, blah. They emailed back, we don't have that.
You didn't go on that podcast, did you? Or No,
absolutely not. If I present myself in a way of all I want to do is give free value to your audience, that's it.
100%.
and you aren't willing to invest in me despite what I am willing to give to you, and you want me to pay for that, what happened to free value? What happened to just helping each other's business grow, because that's what we're put on this planet to do?
Different principles.
So that's one big thing. Another thing is I always do a call with them beforehand. So if I'm going to go on somebody's podcast, and you and I did this, right? We
100%.
went and we just talked for forever.
Yep.
I always do that, because you either figure out if you like the person or you don't real quick.
And if you don't, you shouldn't go on their podcast. Is that your method?
No, because I think for me, one of the reasons why I say no to some is I can tell that they're trying to pick my brain to use my information and give it to their audience as if it were theirs.
That's so bad.
It's so bad. And I have dealt with it when we teach classes. Sometimes I've dealt with it. You can tell the way they even introduce you. They introduce you as this person that's coming on so that you, as the other person, can better serve your audience. Like, you're not better serving your audience. I'm helping your audience. And the whole concept of giving credit where credit's due, I think, has really been lost on people. I am who I am, and I'm in the podcast space the way I am now because of Phil Treadwell. I will give every ounce of credit to that man.
I'll be excited to meet him. You guys, you and Kyle both speak highly of him. So,
100%.
He's chosen to go into the mortgage space, but just because he's in the mortgage space and that's the business you're focused, that doesn't make him special, right? It's just he's a special person within that space.
And I know you on the Necessary Entrepreneur, I think Phil would be a fantastic addition to it. The man is a genius.
Yeah.
The man is a giver, right? The man is somebody who just wants to help other people because somebody was willing to do it for him.
Yeah. That story is important, because that is what's so important about this podcast is when I thought about it, everybody's like, hey, what are you going to do with it? We invest this studio. I know the background I'm hanging on this wall, but this studio, when you come see it in a couple weeks, we didn't spare any expense on it. We spent a lot of money. It's beautiful. But everybody's like, what are you going to do with it? I was like, if the word monetize, I know monetize Instagram, but I was like, if the word monetize comes out of your mouth with me doing this podcast one time, I'm going to throw you out of this room. Because to me, no, it's like, guys, I'm not trying to monetize this. It's just I figured some things out in business. And I've figured some things out about helping people and caring about them, having a greater purpose. And I figured some stuff out about entrepreneurship too, from where I started in life to what I've achieved now to where I'm going. You're by default going to hear some of my message intertwined in here, but it's bringing other people of like minds, and entrepreneurs kind of do have like minds to succeed. And it's bringing these stories together to help people to say, hey, if you're going to go down this path and you're going to venture out, to your point, you can't just dip your toe in the world of entrepreneurship, because it is really fucking freezing cold, and I'll take that word out. And it's really cold, and it's frigid, and sometimes it's deep, and sometimes the waters are unknown, and you have to learn how to swim, survive, and thrive regardless.
Yeah. I use the phrase reckless resolve, right? You have to have an undying amount of reckless resolve to say, I suck today.
Yep.
I'm okay with the fact that I suck today, but I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and what made me suck the first round is I'm going to crush it the second round.
100%. This is free coaching for people.
When I first launched the course, right, it was a total flop, Mark. Literally within the first 2 weeks, I sold one course. In my mind, I went into it, I'm going to sell millions of these. This is amazing, right?
And that's the story. That's the story of entrepreneurship. When you start, it's rife with failure.
And I think the best entrepreneurs, the best people who walk away from it or grow in it, right? And the difference between people who walk away from it and grow from it are the ones who say that phrase, right? Like the reckless resolve concept, the ones who can look at that and say, this event or this opportunity that I decided to create, I failed. I 100% failed. Why did I fail though? Dissecting it, taking notes, reading books, doing the things you need to do to figure out why you failed.
Where'd that come from? This is the search. I hear it on the podcast with millions of subscribers and viewers. There's a guy named Patrick Bet-David who's Valuetainment. You hear some of this stuff. I listen to Joe Rogan sometimes. It's not as much, but Gary Vee. And everybody is on the path and on the search for how is this created? That reckless resolve, this commitment. You were a collegiate swimmer. You were very successful in sports. You're into fitness. But I'm not. I'm not into those things. I'm athletic, but I'm not into those. But we share this thing. How the hell is that created? How does that foment? What's your take on that?
I think such a loaded thing. I don't know that any one person would have a perfect answer to that. But the phrase reckless resolve, for those who are wondering, I didn't make that up. It's actually from a book called Good to Great written by Jim Collins.
Great book.
Literally a life-changing book if you let it be. For those of you who read that and say, I'm already doing this, I already am great, I don't need it, put it down and burn it, right? Because you're just not going to get what you need to get out of it. But when I first started reading Good to Great, I'm only like 100 pages in and I have over 50 pages of notes. Because every time I read something, I write it down and I literally pick the portion of my business and I put a magnifying glass over that portion of my business and I say, this is what going from good to great looks like. And these are the things I am doing. Here's a list of things I'm not doing. And so that's why I've been going through it so slow. But one of the first parts of it is he talks about level 5 leadership and the leaders who run these companies that go from good to great. Number one, they have people on the bus. They focus on who's on the bus, not where the bus is going first. Meaning you get the right people on your team, your bus will go wherever you want it to go. But the people who are like, oh, well, I just have to have as many of the top players in the industry as possible on my team. That's actually wrong, right? Because a lot of times the best leaders or the best people you need on your bus are the ones that you wouldn't have even given a second look at the first time around. Sarah, my assistant, is a fantastic example. She had 0 Instagram experience. Her Instagram presence herself was awful. But what did Sarah have? Sarah had a psychology background and a passion for giving, right? And I said, I can make you what I want to make out of you, right? Or I can turn you into what I need you to be. And she had that mentality of coming at it from a place of servitude and understanding what goes on in our brains. All the rest of it is teachable. So that was the first part, right? Is who's on your bus. And then the second thing for me as a level 5 leader or someone who's trying to be was that phrase, reckless resolve. He talks about it in the book. There's literally a full 10 pages on this one phrase. And level 5 leaders who quantify as that, so you can actually say, I am level 5, are the ones who have the reckless resolve to take themselves out of it, or to walk into a room of all of their team members and say, that was 100% my fault, right? Or as a team, we failed, but I, as the leader, I take responsibility for that, right? Last week on Thursday, we had an incredible event for my team. We walked away from that. We said, we crushed that. We absolutely crushed that. We had 10 agents and loan officers from across the country pay $4,000 to come sit in a room with my team for 10 hours. And we walked away from that. And I mean, Mark, I texted you and Kyle that afternoon, right? Yep. We had an incredible day. But when we get to the office this morning, what's the first thing we do? We're dissecting it and we're saying, how can we make this better in October, despite the fact that we had incredible results?
See that thing? See, this is the stuff I'm talking about. So from what I've learned and a reason why this company is just going to grow, and I can just, well, of course Michelle's crushing it. Of course you're going to accomplish all your goals. So that's the thing. You're like, well, it's a loaded question. Well, I hear you, but man, if we can help people. I don't know if there's
a definition. Would you define reckless result? I don't know what the definition of that is.
To me, you have that, and I have this thing, commit and don't quit, because what I tell people all the time, and this is what Jenna, my significant other, says, she's like, you know what? When you play him something, could be a board game, could be a game of ping pong, could be anything competitive. You might win the first 2 or 3 times, but he's going to get to a point where he's going to reverse engineer it. He's going to find your weakness. He's going to find a way to execute and win, and then I will consistently win because I mentally commit to it. And this thing that I hear, so for me, it's commit and don't quit. I never start out the best, ever. And so,
and honestly, would beg to say, you and I, as good as we are, I don't think we even still are the best.
No, and so because even if you are, you don't even slow down to think you are, because then you're competing against your old self and who you were yesterday. And I just wish that, because there's so many people, and we're hiring 8 to 10 new people a month to come and partner with our company to build their real estate career, and I just want to help them as much as I can, and that's what this Necessary Entrepreneur series is about in the podcast. But I want to help them understand this mentality that's necessary. And I don't want it to just be, well, if you don't have it, oh well, because that's tough to know if they have this, reckless resolve you're talking about.
Yeah, I think there's something so incredibly beautiful about the entrepreneur mind, and what actually defines having an entrepreneur mind. I think that is a whole nother conversation because it's a loaded question.
Can't wait for
But
dinner when you guys come in. Then we'll
um,
sit for hours. You'll have amazing steaks, and you and that baby will, you'll be
yeah,
fed really good.
my son Knox is going to be like, we're going to go see Uncle Mark a little more frequently for some of that steak.
You're gonna love
But
it here. So hey, what's the call to action for anybody who listens to this? If it's agents, if it's loan officers, but if it's other business people that I'm connected with or people that are in my network, what's the call to action in the message?
so the ultimate thing is let go or make note of your excuses, right? If you have them, write them down. Acknowledge your current excuses. The whole concept of acknowledging is the first step to changing, right? You have to accept that you actually have a problem. So write them down. Write the things down that you feel like are currently why you haven't committed to doing it. And then put yourself in a position to be around others who are doing what you actually want to do. And that train will start, right? Even if it's slow, even if that movement in the right direction is slow, if you surround yourself with those who are doing it, and not falling victim to those excuses that you just acknowledged you have, you will eventually grow out of them.
Hey, give us our Instagram hit to end it. Talk about this hashtag thing.
Oh God, that's a whole hour by
no.
itself.
So you have like 60 seconds. Like, give us what we're totally screwing up and what we should do better and what we should know, and then after that, how they can connect with you. We'll put up on the screen all your social media connections, but give us hashtag love.
So the hashtags thing, the number one thing I want anyone to think about, and listen to this part of the video over and over again because you probably will have to make sure you really get it. But the hashtags you use on your content are polar opposite, and in many cases have nothing to do with the hashtags you do engagement on. And I'm specifically talking about realtors, right? The hashtags you use on your pieces of content that go live on your Instagram feed and the hashtags that you use to do your daily engagement are not the same, and they are polar opposite of what in your mind you think you should be doing. And why? Because where you engage should be what I call your third place. For those people who are coming to your event, Mark, they're going to get to hear me talk about this. But what is your third place? Meaning where, when you are not selling real estate actively in a house, showing a home, or at home eating dinner with your family, where do you hang out? Where are your spheres? What do you do on the weekends? What networks are you part of? Spend time engaging in those places on Instagram, because that's where your audience that you're trying to generate more business from lives, not in realtor hashtags or in, Cincinnati real estate, or hashtag Cincinnati realtor, right? Your ideal client is not living in that. Where they're living is in Cincinnati local restaurants, right? Or Cincinnati bar scene or the whiskey scene, right? Meaning whatever your ideal client does outside of their own occupation, you have to live there in order to fish them out. And this is, again, it's a 2-hour conversation by itself, but
you're going to make us a lot smarter when you come. So thank you for taking the time today.
You're going to make me smarter.
Listen, I'm just grinding every day. I'm just a normal guy that has figured out how to work harder than most people. Like, that's my answer. That's what makes it so simple for me. Thank you for joining us. This was tremendous. I think people are going to walk away with value and want more of Michelle Mikel. So how do they reach out to you? I'm sure they can find you on Michelle Mikel.
Yeah, so on Facebook, it's just Michelle Mikel. That's my personal Facebook. Send me a request and, send me a PM if you want to. I'd love to hear from you. But the easiest way to get a hold of me is on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Berman Media Social, all one word. If you look at Berman Media Social, my name will pop right up. Send me a DM. If you're listening to Mark and I, take a screenshot and put it in your stories and tag us. We are all, I know Mark's the same as I am. Like, we just want to help every single person that we can, because it makes us feel good. So send me a message if you want to there. Emailing me is pretty easy too. My email handle, or my email address, if you will, is in my Instagram bio. And that's probably the fastest.
Perfect. Enjoy the Tempe, Arizona weather today.
Yes, it's supposed to be 85.
Hey, it's 55 in Cincinnati, so that's not all bad today.
I'm going to have to bring a jacket.
You're going to have to. We might be able to find you one somewhere. Hey, thanks for the time. I know you're a busy lady, and I think you've helped us improve our lives. So hopefully you get some business and you impact some lives coming from this. So we'll see you here in 2 weeks.
Crazy. Awesome. I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day again.
Boom.